Congressman Jim Banks joins us right now of the Indiana 3rd District, also a candidate for Senate in the state of Indiana. You're sitting in the room and you hear Joe Biden say Trump added 25% of our debt, and those are the facts, and check it out. What say you?
Well, I checked it out, and under this president, we now have a $32 trillion national debt. And it was high enough under Trump, but under Biden, it's gone up more than at any point in American history. So this president has spent more than any president before him. And Tony, that's why 6 out of 10 Americans believe that Joe Biden hasn't accomplished not very much or very little since he took office, and only 37% of Democrats want Joe Biden to run for office again. So those are the facts, Joe Biden. Check those facts out. The fact of the matter is, the president last night gave a State of the Union speech that completely glossed over the real issues affecting the American people: the economy, inflation, high gas prices. You know, you take inflation, which was at 1.4% when Joe Biden took office. Today, it's over 6%. You look at energy, gas prices were on average $2.39 a gallon when Joe Biden took office. Today, on average, $3.47, the highest household energy cost in 15 years. I could go on and on in my list of numbers that you can check out and find to be true. And the fact of the matter is, the State of the Union is a lot worse off today than it was the day that Joe Biden first took office.
But just so we're on the same page, making sure we understand each other, we're not saying that Trump didn't spend. Even I argued that Trump spent. He's making the argument that he has been able to cut the deficit, and it's Trump who added all of the debt. And the argument from Republicans is, yeah, that's not the case.
Yeah, that's a bold-faced lie. It's like a lot of other lies that he told last night. He talked about having a plan that Republicans are blocking to secure the border, and it's this president who opened the border wide open, which is why we have the fentanyl crisis in America, the leading cause of death of Americans, yours and my age, Tony, is fentanyl, because it's flowing over the border at unprecedented rates because of the biggest humanitarian crisis in American history. And he lied to the American people and said he had a plan to secure the border. And I looked around at all of my colleagues, my even colleagues on the other side of the aisle were looking around. They had no idea what plan he was talking about, because he doesn't have a plan. It was his plan that opened it to begin with. So whether it's lying about the deficits and the debt, which is on a trajectory to continue to go sky high with the spending rates of this president, or a lot of other subjects, not only did he not tell the truth, he didn't focus on the issues that really matter to the American people, and that's what's so disappointing about it.
Talking to Congressman Jim Banks of the Indiana 3rd District, also a candidate for Senate for the Republican nomination in the state of Indiana. It was clear to me, and I think to a lot of people, that he was trying to make the claim of, look, I'm the guy who understands blue collar. I'm the guy who's going to deliver a populist message, the forgotten man. Your district, right, the 3rd, and you can even say this about Congressman Youngkin's district, you deal with a lot of blue collar people. Tremendous numbers of manufacturing going on in those areas. In your view, was there anything that Joe Biden offered in an honest assessment that connects with those voters, or are those voters looking for something different?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if you think about it, it doesn't matter what comes out of his mouth. He's already lost the trust of the American people. I remember what I said. I mean, not even 40% of Democrats want Joe Biden to run for office again and think that he deserves a second term as president. So I think for the most part, Hoosiers are listening to a speech like that one last night, and if they didn't doze off in the process, they well understand that he's full of it. The stuff that he's talking about, he's had 2 years which he's squandered as president to focus on bringing down inflation, controlling gas prices, sky-high violent crime rates all over this country because of the Democrats' soft-on-crime policies, the fentanyl epidemic. I don't talk to almost a single family anymore in Indiana as I travel the state who hasn't been affected one way or another by the fentanyl and drug epidemic in this country. So they know that whatever comes out of President Biden's mouth doesn't match the reality. They know that those are empty words coming from this president. So I think that at the end of the day, he can say whatever he wants. He can pretend to be a populist. He can try to connect with working people, but he doesn't. He hasn't earned. In fact, he's lost the trust of working class Americans to begin with.
One of the conversation pieces that certainly got the most attention was this conversation regarding Social Security and regarding Medicare, and when the president said this.
So, folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be funded. All right. We got unanimity.
Joe Biden was very excited about this, that Social Security and Medicare won't be touched. Some people have noted, yeah, you have to touch them. These are programs that don't work. Did Republicans just roll over and show the soft side of their belly there, or is there something else at play?
Well, he also, the other part of that clip that's worth playing was him accusing Republicans of wanting to sunset Social Security and Medicare, which is not. That's not rooted in any truth at all, Tony. So he lied to the American people about the stance of Republicans versus Democrats. When at the end of the day, the reality is that, and what Republicans believe, and the types of reforms that we have put forth are to save these programs, save Social Security and Medicare for future generations without touching or impacting Social Security benefits for anyone who relies on them today or who will rely on them in the near future, but reform these programs so that they will last well into the future for later generations. So the president just a bold-faced lie about Republicans wanting to. This is the boogeyman politics of Democrats that the voters have caught on to. That again, Hoosiers are well aware that the words that come out of this president's mouth don't match the reality. So they know when he's lying. Hoosiers can tell. They see it. They already know it. But there were a number of lies wrapped up in that exchange as well.
Were you okay with all the words that came out of Republicans' mouths last night, with the shouts of liar, when conversation about fentanyl, somebody shouted out, it's your fault? Do you think that creates an issue for the Republican Party going forward?
Look, it is Joe Biden's fault that fentanyl is flowing into this country at rates that it has been, and is the leading cause of death of Americans my age. That we have a crisis in this country when it comes to the drug epidemic, the wide open border. That is Joe Biden's fault. The first day in office, he signed executive orders to stop construction of the wall, return to the catch and release policies of the Obama administration, to stop the Trump policies of the Remain in Mexico policy that worked to secure the border. So those are that. I wasn't one on the floor who was necessarily shouting or reacting in that way. I agree that Joe Biden deserves the blame, and I think most Americans agree too.
Talking to Congressman Jim Banks of the Indiana 3rd District as we go over this State of the Union. What did you hear that could make you say, you know what? I'm going to take the president up on that, and here's my piece of legislation. What do we got? Is there any place where you personally or Republicans as a whole will say, you want to work on this thing right here? Let's go to work on it. Where did the president, as you see it, give a moment of rationality to create an opportunity?
Well, it was a very brief moment. I wish we would have talked about it a lot more, but a growing bipartisan agreement, especially with Nancy Pelosi out of the Speaker's office, that we have to tackle the China threat. China is the greatest national security threat facing America today, and the balloon sort of awakened so many Americans to that reality, and the weakness of this administration projected toward the Chinese Communist Party, but the balloon was sort of a wake-up call for the American people. And while President Biden didn't talk about it, he did sort of, tip his hat that we have to do more to confront China last night. And I want to take him up on that. And I'm a part of the new Select Committee on confronting the Chinese Communist Party. We kicked it off this morning. We're going to be working hard over the next 2 years to develop a whole-of-government strategy and approach to confront the economic and military threats that China poses to America. The other thing that they talked about last night that I appreciate that echoed the themes of the Trump administration and some of the good work of President Trump is to support made in America policies, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure projects. So while I haven't seen a lot of action on that front by this president, I want to encourage him to follow through on that commitment that he made when it comes to especially steel made in America, also made in Indiana. We're the fifth largest steel producing state or one of the top steel producing states in the country. And Northeast Indiana is one of the top congressional districts that produces steel. So let's go there. Let's find bipartisan ways to work on that, and I'll be happy that we did.
So just taking a step back to the China conversation, because I'm in agreement on, there was conversation that if you only buy made in America, it's going to cost more to do the projects. To me, I think that's the price you pay for not being supportive of maybe other places like China. We talk about this balloon. As you know, I've had time to go over this. Maybe you've gotten some information that you can share. Is there a reason that this Chinese spy balloon was not shot down when they maybe first knew about it and it was traveling the Aleutian Islands? Was it really only known about when it hit Montana? And why the wait? Was it really a safety and security issue, or was there something else going on? In your view, what can you tell us?
Yeah, there's no good reason why they didn't shoot it down when it first entered our airspace. Coming from the west and the Aleutian Islands and that vicinity would have been just as safe to shoot it down there as to wait until it crossed the entire United States of America. They shot it down off the coast of the Carolinas. So there's no good reason for it. But the administration was caught flat-footed on it. They didn't know how to explain it. The Pentagon played politics and said, well, there were balloons that were spotted during the Trump administration, but no senior official in the Trump administration is aware of it, which raises a lot of other questions, like why weren't they why weren't they briefed? Wasn't the president or his senior advisors briefed if it did happen during the Trump administration? And why aren't we doing more to stop it? I mean, to a Chinese spy balloon in American airspace and in our own airspace, why we would allow that and not take swift and tough action against it is just another sign of how weak this administration really is.
Is there anything to the argument that, when it was shot down, there's a 7-mile debris field, people could have been injured? You didn't know what was in the balloon. There could have been something dangerous to affect American citizens. In your view, no reason not to make it happen. Yeah,
I don't know why they couldn't have shot it down when it was first detected in a safe place. Where Americans wouldn't have been affected by shooting it down at that point. So many questions. We're going to have hearings on it, I'm sure, for several weeks to come. We had a hearing yesterday on the China subject in the Armed Services Committee, and was able to ask retired Admiral Harris some questions about his thoughts on his military background. He did confirm that when he was serving in the first half of the Trump administration in uniform, there were none of these spy balloons that were detected, but that we need to question the leaders who are in the jobs today. And when General Milley and Secretary Austin and Pentagon officials come before the House Armed Services Committee, I guarantee we'll be asking some of those tough questions at that point here in a couple of weeks.
Congressman Jim Banks of the Indiana 3rd District, candidate Republican for Senate in the state of Indiana. I appreciate taking the time to be with us. We've got more coming up. I'm Tony Katz.